Hey guys, welcome to 10-Minute Chemistry. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about atomic structure. We're only doing the basics and this is a quick, short video. Okay, so we've got 3 main points to get through today. You need to know the 2D structure of an atom, and you need to know what charges the different parts of an atom has. And finally, we're just going to touch very briefly on the main atomic theories. We're not going to spend too much time on that, but it's something that exams like to test, so we're just going to cover it for completeness. So this is the 2D structure of an atom. On the outside, it's got electrons, and the part in the middle that's shaded is the nucleus of an atom. Within the nucleus, there's 2 different subparts. We have protons, neutrons. Protons in red, neutrons in blue. So that's the 2D structure of an atom done. Simple. Check. How quick was that? That was like less than 2 minutes. So yeah, 2D structure of an atom, electrons, protons, and neutrons. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the different charges that the subparts of an atom has. So from our previous thing, we talked about the 3 parts of an atom, which were neutrons, electrons, and protons. And here we're going to talk about the charges that each of those parts have. So there's a very good rhyming mechanism that this has, so you don't really have to memorize it. But like the name of the part sounds like the charge that it has. I don't know if that made sense, but I'm just gonna go ahead and show you what I mean. So the first part we're going to be talking about is a proton. So a proton is positively charged. P, proton, positively charged. Okay, and then the next one we're going to look at is the neutron, which is in blue there, and a neutron is neutral. Okay, see what we did there? A neutron is neutral. The final piece, which doesn't rhyme, unfortunately, is an electron, which is negatively charged. Okay, and that's it. Check. We have done the charges of the different subparts of an atom. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the main atomic theories. This might sound like a bit of a bore, but it is really high yield in everything that you're going to be tested on, so it's best we cover it for completeness. So we're going to be talking about the 3 main atomic theories. The first one is the plum pudding model by J.J. Thomson. The second one's the nuclear model by Ernest Rutherford. And the third one is the Bohr model by Niels Bohr. I know I said we're only going to do 3, but we're just going to mention James Chadwick, who actually discovered neutrons. So the first one we're going to talk about is the plum pudding model by J.J. Thomson. The plum pudding model by J.J. Thomson. It's a bit of a tongue twister. The guy was clearly a foodie, because why else would you name your theory after pudding? He was basically saying that an atom is kind of like a positively charged plum pudding, and it's got all these negatively charged raisins scattered around very randomly. You know, when you're eating a pudding, you can't really tell when you're going to get the next raisin, which is annoying if you hate raisins, but is amazing if you love raisins. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, he was basically saying that an atom has a positively charged background, aka the pudding, and negatively charged raisins swimming around it very randomly. The next one we're going to talk about is the nuclear model by Ernest Rutherford. Essentially, Rutherford did some very fancy experiments and realized from his experiments that can't actually be the way JJ described it, because when he did his experiment, he found that there was a very hard thing in the center. So there was no way that an atom was similar to plum pudding, because then you wouldn't have anything hard in the middle, right? Pudding is just pudding throughout. There's no like hard center. But what Ernest, that's a very strong sounding name. What Ernest is basically saying was that instead of an atom being like a plum pudding, think of it as like an avocado, right? It's got that hard thing in the middle, but then it's got all the goodness around it, but it's definitely got a hard center. And that's what Ernest was trying to tell us. And that is what his nuclear model means. It means he had a nuclear center in the middle, aka the seed of an avocado in the middle, and then he had all this goodness around it. And essentially, he was also trying to tell us that you have that strong core in the middle, but then you've got electrons moving around the core. So it's moving around in like an orbit, like the way the Earth moves around the sun, as they say. And I've got my little animation there, to kind of help you see how that electron moves around the orbit. So the final one we're going to look at is Bohr's model by Niels Bohr. Basically, how pretentious do you have to be to name something after yourself? JK, it's not pretentious at all. So anyway, Niels Bohr said, yeah, I see what you did there, Ernest. Like, yeah, there's a hardcore in the middle and this thing's moving around. But what I will tell you that you did not get right is that basically these electrons are not just moving around in some old-fashioned orbit, like you said. They're moving about in discrete levels. And so he made this model with the circles that we all now see all around and know as the model for an atom. But it didn't end there because Bohr didn't know what was in the middle. He just knew that it was a hard core and there's probably something positive in there, and then we've got electrons on the outside, but we don't really know what the black stuff is. And that is where our special mention guy comes in. So James Chadwick discovered that the core in the middle was made up of positive charges, which we already knew, and neutral charges, which he called neutrons because they don't have a charge, but they have a mass. So the hard core is made up of positive charges and neutral neutrons. In summary, we have first JJ, who brought the plum pudding model because he was a bit of a foodie and said that an atom was basically like a positively charged pudding with negatively charged raisins scattered randomly. But then Ernest comes around and says, actually, JJ, I see what you did there, but you're not completely right. Okay, when I did my experiment, there was some hard core in the middle. So I don't think it's like a pudding. I think it's we're going to call it fancy, nuclear model. But actually, if we're going to be foodies like JJ, we would say it was kind of like an avocado. It's got a hard core in the middle and it's got gooey goodness around it. And that was Ernest's contribution to everything. And then Bohr comes around and says, actually, I see what you all did there, but my model tells me that not only do these electrons move around the hard core in the middle, they move around in discrete levels, so you can only have a certain number of circles. You can't just have random circles all around, like in the nuclear model. You've got to have, discrete levels of shells. Keep that word. We're going to come back to it in a few weeks when we talk about the periodic table, but we're not talking about that today. We are only doing basics. And that is it, guys. Like, we've gone through that in less than 10 minutes, which is amazing. Welcome to 10-minute chemistry. And yeah, that's essentially all we needed to talk about today. But you made it to this point. You can pause the video here and work on the questions, or you can just, listen to the music as you work through the questions, and the answers will come up at the end. So essentially, this is the end of today's video. Thank you guys for watching. We're really excited that you decided to watch this video. If you like this content, press the like button and hit subscribe so you can get notifications when our videos come out every Wednesday at 12 p.m. British time. Thanks for watching.